Cheers. Right, hi guys, Grant from Penguin Motors here. This is with our, well, let's call it the South African Crossflow because that's where it came from. This is the mild engine I ran on a dyno the other week that produced pretty limp power. I've not been inside it yet, I've just stripped a few ancillaries off. So, what do I think I'm going to find? Well, basically, we know we've got an uprated Burton cylinder head on it, but being a crossflow, that won't change the compression ratio. Also, when I looked at the power curves, I looked at the power and the torque, within 100 RPM or so, both peak power and peak torque occur where Ford say they should have done, which suggests a standard camshaft. Now, the owners did say they did a compression test on it, wasn't all that good. But I did a compression test after running it on the dyno, and I got about 150 psi on all the cylinders, so it's pretty even. So what do I think we're going to find? Basically, I think we're going to find a standard 16 on the bottom end with what we know is an uprated cylinder head. In terms of power, it made a little bit more than standard, but then it's probably got a better flowing exhaust than the standard. It certainly had a freer flowing air filter than standard. Whether the VW Darrington manifold added any power or not, I wouldn't like to say, but I suspect there's no power gain over a standard GT manifold. So, well, let's just get into it, see what we got. Let's take the plugs out. Plugs all look about as expected. Slightly dark. But, you know, the air-fuel ratio was about on the money throughout the whole of the pool, and the plugs kind of reflect that. What are we going to find under here? Completely standard rocker shaft assembly, as I kind of expected. Bit of tablet clearance there. Rocker geometry doesn't look too bad. Standard rockers and posts, which is kind of what you'd expect. Let's have that rocker shaft off, shall we? Let's see if my little gun will undo it. Now, the whole world will tell you you need steel posts and spacers. The thing with the posts is the standard posts are aluminium and the bolts at the back, so the shaft isn't actually that supported. So steel posts are a good idea. Spacers, to be honest, the spacers don't really do a lot. I've seen, you know, people fit them, but there's no real sideways thrust on the rockers anyway. And I mean, I remember when I first got involved in these such things, we ran standard shafts, steel posts, springs like this, A6 cams, etc., 260 cams, rev them to the moon and back, never an issue. So I think the spacers are a bit overkill, but posts, yeah, good idea. The engine hasn't run long enough for it to really put any imprint on the valves, but the geometry looks okay from that angle. Yeah, push rods are push rods. Nothing to see there. See if we get these head bolts off. Are you ready? Right, so I'll bring you in a minute, but what I can see here are 1600 pistons, Clearly the block has never been decked because the pistons are a long way down. From the size on them, stamped on the top, it's been rebored because they are 82.4 millimeters, and standard would be give or take fraction 81, so that's 1.5 mil oversized, roughly 60 thou. So this engine would have been about 1660 originally, or it is 1660ish at the moment, or 1658 I think it is exactly, but anyway, yeah, so it's definitely in a rebore. From the look of the bores, no, not lately. Quick check. Rivonia, yeah. (82.51). So definitely plus 60 pistons, which isn't the best tool for doing a deck height, but I'm going to do it anyway. 0.8 of a millimetre down, so they're a good 30 odd thou down, and it feels it. The bores themselves don't feel to have any real wear in them. But they're pretty glazed. They're all showing signs of some water ingress. Yeah, there you can see. That's those are all corrosion marks. So that's where at some point moisture sat in the bores, and then the engine's run, and the rings have cleaned it off and polished it up, but it still doesn't give a very good ring surface because that's actually pitted there. In particular there, that's a noticeable ridge there. That's not a, I can actually catch that with my nail. So we're going to need a rebore. Well, if it's already plus 60, the next size is plus 90, so good old 1700. Here we come. Right, so if this is a standard cam, on the inlet we should have about 230 thou cam lift, or valve lift, cam lift. Obviously because the rockers have got a ratio, so the rockers lift more than the cam. Right, let's just see, is that settled? It's reading a little low, right. Right, we zeroed that. Let's bring you in a bit so you can see the numbers. I'm just gonna turn the engine, 100. So, fraction over 200 thou cam lift. So without doubt, then we're missing a good bit, because the yeah, we're 30 odd thou down on standard. So yeah, I would say we've got a worn out standard cam in there, which again explains why it didn't rev out and why it only made slightly better than standard power, given that it did have a few upgrades. Right, let's get this sump off, see what surprises it holds. Well, no surprises in there. Recent new big end from the look of that. There's some not very nice marks in that rod. Although the bearing fitted nicely. Piston looks okay. Now on the dyno, and I probably said earlier, I thought the oil pressure was slightly on the low side, but having just took the bolt out to remove the oil pickup tube, it's loose in the block. These need to be a snug fit, so that's loose and wobbly. Now, if that's not a good fit in that block, the oil pump will suck air down there and will give us a lowish oil pressure. So we either need a new oil pickup, or we're going to have to glue it into the block to seal it up. Right, are you ready to see the timing chain? I got a sneak preview of it through the sump. But this is going to be sloppy. Yeah, she's pretty tired, and the snail is all the way round. I don't suppose there's anything left of the tensioner pad. Oh, look at that. Nice groove in that. No wonder it sounded a bit rattly. Right guys, here we are. We're nearly stripped down, so flywheel bolts. Now, these have all got grooves in them. Why have they got grooves in them? They got grooves in them because someone's put washers under them. So the back of the clutch plate would have touched them, so I'm almost surprised it didn't have issues with clutch drag. Maybe it did. Right guys, so that was the main points of the assembly. As we can see, basically what we had was a pretty standard but tired engine, which is why it made just about standard power, slightly up. But then as we ran it on the dyno, it did have a better exhaust system and it did have the Burton modified heads. So, you know, all in all, it probably made about what it ought to do. So for the reassembly, I'm not going to go into blow-by-blow detail, partly because there's nothing that interesting there, and you've seen it all before anyway. But where shall I start? Well, I'm going to start. We did take a little bit off the flywheel. We started with the standard flywheel, which weighed, what, 10 kilos. I chucked it in the lathe, machined the lump off the back of it, just brought it down a couple of kilos to 8. And the reason being is that the lighter flywheel will help it accelerate, but it's a road car, so I wanted to keep nice manners and good clutch control, the rest of it, so I didn't go mad. Once the flywheel was lightened, it then went off with the crankshaft, which was then reground, and the flywheel balanced to it. Hi there, right, Graham here with the latest bit on the South African crossflow bottom end rebuild. Pretty much the same bottom end as in the Marcus one I've just done. Set of 1300 headlight pistons. In this instance they're plus 90s, not plus 110s, but that's not going to make much difference. We've got the same Kent 224 cam, dialed on duplex vernier. And as usual, I've relieved a bit off the front main to stop the rivets of the chain rubbing into the end of the bearing. This engine, when I last ran it on a dyno, didn't have a great deal of oil pressure. And almost certainly that was due to the oil pickup leaking air up the pipe here. So we've got a new oil pickup from Burton's. We had a bit of damage to the timing cover, so I've gone out and got, again for Burton's, cover with a removable plate. So I'm gonna swing the cam timing on a dyno. Is it gonna make any difference? I'm not sure. It's quite a mild cam, so it's not gonna be as fussy as some. The last time I swung the cam timing on a crossflow on the dyno, I got a bit of a game, but not much of one. But hey, if you don't try, you don't know. So that's the timing cover. And lastly, for blingy bits, a set of Burton roller rockers. Now I came about these some time back when Burton's asked me to basically destruction test a set. I ran a set on an engine, 6,000 RPM, literally all day long, trying to wear them out. I didn't. But what I did find is I got a small power gain from them. They're standard ratio, and they're plain bushes in the middle, but they do have roller tips. You might say they're a bit overkill for this engine, but the rocker assembly that came with this is completely wore out. The tips of the original pads are worn, they're funny shaped, they're worn up the middle, so you can't find new rockers. So even if we could reprofile the pads, you can't get rid of wear in the middle of the rocker. The shaft on that is worn. It still had alloy pillars, so we really needed to upgrade it with steel pillars. So to be honest, by the time you've tried to re-engineer or make good an original set of rocker gear, you're not that far off the cost of this here set. So this is probably the biggest difference between this and the Marcos one, in the fact that we've got roller rockers. But yeah, so that's the most of the bottom end. I've reassembled it up this far. There's no trickery here. You've seen that all before, cam timing, etc. So I'm just going to button the bottom end up, stick the head on. Might be Dyno next time you see this. I did get a bit of a surprise just before I took the engine off the engine stand, because I assembled it, timed it all up, etc., and it rotated lovely. And then I found that once I put the sump on, it didn't. And this is a 1600 sump, but the big end bolts I'd used, which were heavy duty BDA type, were just that bit bigger that they hit the sides of the sump. So we had to, I warmed up the sump in the 4 spots where they hit, acetylene torch, give them a little tap and a bulge out. So we've now got 4 bumps in the side of the sump and a bit of one in the bottom, because one touched down the bottom. So it just shows how close the standard big end bolts actually get to the sides of that sump. Right, that's it. We're pretty much done now. I've just been through and reset the tappets before I take it off the dyno. I always like to check them when I'm finished the session, just in case they're a bit tight, or this case they'd all backed off a fraction. But yeah, she's ready now. So what did we finish up? Well, we finished up with some decent numbers. Just to recap, we've got we're at 1700cc. We've got a Kent 224 cam, set of Burton roller rockers, an adjustable timing gear, and a removable cover. I did actually tweak the cam timing during the dyno session, retarded the camber fraction, picked up a little bit of torque, so I kind of left it at that. But yeah, all in all, quite happy with how it turned out. So right guys, here we are. Got some power curves. In blue, our torque. In light green, our horsepower. These squiggly bits down here are where we started. Not a great back-to-back, because obviously, although it was the same cylinder head, this was prior to rebuild, and only on a single carb versus twin, so it was tired. Yeah, now something a lot of you are always asking about is jet sizes, and I don't tend to give away jetting because what's worked for this doesn't necessarily work for you. But what I will say is we ran this on 30mm chokes because I wanted a flat torque curve, plenty at the beginning. I wasn't worried about chasing top end horsepower. We ended up with 110 mains, 145 airs, and some 50 F9 idles. Now, a lot of you go, well, yeah, you really need bigger chokes. Well, like I said, we weren't trying to get every last bit out of here. Now, what a lot of you may not have realised is that most Lotus variations of the twin cam, as in the Elan, the Lotus Cortina, and even Mark 1 RS 1600 Escort with its BDA, they all came from the factory with 30mm chokes, with main and air sizes very close to what I've got here. So, you know, it's not big chokes, big jets aren't everything. The fact it works quite well on the small chokes and needs smallish mains shows that we've got plenty of airspeed, and the engine actually is making a nice roady type engine. So what's next? I'll tell you, I'm going to show you. We just took up another quick run, and then I'll be back and I'll show you a couple of comparisons with some other engines. So what we got here? Well, we've got the same engine in blue and green, and in the yellow and the tan colour yellow shape is the last 1600 cross slide did, the Marcus one, which is a very similar engine. The only real difference between the two are the roller rockers, to be honest. Maybe I tried slightly harder with a tune on this one. The difference looks fairly big, but it's only a couple of horsepower. So, you know, we finished up with the best of 125 brake and something like 125 pound-foot of torque. So that was where we finished. Let me just stick one more comparison up for you. And here in red, we have my own 1600 Crossflow Dyno mule, which you can see just about matches at the very end, but everywhere else it's well down. There's two major differences between these engines. One is that my engine has a BCF2 in it. This is the 224 cam, and my engine had 33mm chokes, where we've got the 30s in the South African engine here on a Dyno. So in terms of drivability, these are like chalk and cheese. And on that bombshell, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and I'll bring you some more. Catch you on the flip side, guys.